This is the Cover 3 Tailgate. And welcome back to the Cover 3 podcast here on CBS Sports. That's Tom Fornelli. That's Bud Elliott. That's Danny Kanell. I'm Chip Patterson coming to you live at youtube.com/cover3 and everywhere you get your podcasts on demand. Thanks for hanging out. Smash that subscribe, smash that like, and come and join us in the chat, a.k.a. the Cover 3 Tailgate, where Coach K jumped in. Not that Coach K, but our friend Coach K33 jumped in at 9:10 a.m. Eastern Time. And he said, it would be a shame not to have a Day Trading Danny segment after the last few days in the market. Danny, it's funny. I think that you've pivoted, like all the great investors, they're able to pivot ahead of the storm. You were telling us, you found other places, other money-making opportunities. Are these offshore markets? Are they domestic? What have we found that's been more profitable than Wall Street?
UConn women's basketball has been the gold mine. That's just been the gift that keeps on giving. I will say this. It has been, as somebody, like I was trading through the 07, 08, like real estate market crash, Lehman Brothers going under, like crazy times. Watching the market this morning, just watching the ticker and watching the futures and seeing the swings that we've already seen, and it's only 11 o'clock, very reminiscent of that. I do think that is a good sign. This volatility, this kind of craziness, hopefully means we might have found a temporary bottom. But I'm not calling a bottom because I've tried to do that before, and that can be like death by 1,000 cuts. If you try to catch that bottom, it can be very rough, but it's been wild to say the least. I'm sure anybody who's got their 401ks or their portfolios up has seen a precipitous decline. It's not fun, but it is wild swings today.
Looks like I'll be doing this show a few years longer than anticipated.
Well, it's like the positives and negatives, right? I mean, that's how we got Danny. I've had so much. I've got so much that I've gained from my relationship with Danny. I want to know where day trading Danny is at. Is at the U.S. stock market.
I don't watch much CNBC, but on these type of mornings, I do want to see like the panic and just hear it and feel it a little bit more. It's been wild.
It really gets the blood going, huh?
Yeah, it does. It's like a junkie. It's like showing him waving a little needle in front of his arm. Not good. It's not healthy.
Right. And didn't, when you got out some of your old trading stuff as a prop for this show, didn't like your family get nervous?
Oh, yeah. This had my wife terrified. The trading logbook, which I use for our Danny Day Trader segment. And I actually wrote, I think I finally showed her, because in here I've got the quarterback, it's Clemson, it's Cape, whatever it is, it's Georgia, it's all the teams. So thank goodness she checked up on me and I had this covered.
Yeah, we will, of course, as you see, if you're watching us live on YouTube, if you're listening to the episode at home, we are going to be talking quarterback starters here in just a little bit. Also, got some good questions from the tailgate as well. Might save those for further closer to the end of the show. Some activity over the weekend from before we got there. Among that activity included a star-studded Colorado Pro Day, a Clemson spring game. Let's start with the activity in Boulder. Our friend Ryan Wilson was out there, and he was very impressed by what he saw from Shedeur Sanders. They called him in his write-up the best deep ball thrower in the 2025 NFL draft. I don't know how much, Danny, did you get to catch much of the Colorado Pro Day highlights? You got Shedeur Sanders, you've got Travis Hunter. What do we take away from that day in Boulder?
I really didn't feel any differently. I would agree with Ryan that Shedeur is a great deep ball thrower, but it's very much a long, like arching high throw that you let get it out early, let him run under it. I think some people can be misled thinking that means he's throwing it 80 yards down the field. It just means he's throwing it and it's hitting the guy perfectly in stride. Like, it's a pretty deep ball. is what I interpreted that. It was Friday night, right? I think I saw it coming on, and we actually had plans Friday night, so I didn't get to lock in and like break down every throw. But I would expect Shedeur, somebody who has put up outstanding stats in live games, that he better look good against air, because he's really good in games when things are clean. I would expect him to have that. With me, Shedeur, it's just the lack of much upside. I think he's really tapped in, and which is a compliment to him and all the hard work he's put in. I just don't see him as this huge like upside guy. So when I did Ryan's podcast, I sat down with him, and he was kind of like, who do you think he could be? And I was like, best case scenario, I think this makes the upside sound really good. I said Drew Brees, Hall of Famer, similar style of player, pocket, highly accurate, wins with his brain, not the best athlete. And then I said, for a baseline, I would say like Kirk Cousins could be a really good career that he could add. And then I saw Tim Hasselbeck said Andy Dalton. Like, I feel like he could be a really solid pro. I don't think he's Hall of Fame. I think that's like perfect as Drew Brees, but I think he could be a really solid pro, given the right situation, given the right talent around him, much like Kirk Cousins and Andy Dalton. Their best years, they had really good teams about him. I think that's what Shedeur could be.
Tom, Bud, y'all catch any of the takeaways from the activity in Boulder?
No.
Go ahead, Tom.
No, I was just because my hottest take is that he will not go in the first 15 picks. If he goes in the first round, it'll be in the back half of the first round.
I think that's fair. I will note, I think the Andy Dalton comparison as a thrower makes some sense, but Andy Dalton was a much better athlete in college than Shedeur has shown. I mean, Andy Dalton rushed for almost 2,000 yards in his college career. And that's including taking out the sacks. And if you recall, I kind of think Shedeur was a better thrower for most of his college career than Andy Dalton was. But I think as a pro, super accurate timing guy, anticipation, not a great athlete, not a great arm, but it's going to try to win with his mind and with the accuracy. There are guys who do that. The Cousins thing, if you told a team they would get Kirk Cousins' career out of Shedeur, Shedeur's going really high. People are like, oh, what? Guys, not everybody has that Josh Allen, Mahomes type ceiling physically. But if you get a GM, you draft Kirk Cousins, you're not getting fired. That's pretty damn good quarterback play for a long time.
Also, we've got the Clemson spring game was over the weekend. Our friend Lane jumped into the tailgate at 8:25 a.m. Clemson spring game went well. All three transfers played well. Tristan Smith had 6 catches for 137 yards and a touchdown. Why is that Tristan Smith name important? He's from the transfer portal. Hey, we also had Ryan Helt, the Purdue transfer, got in there. Obviously, it was an offense versus defense, controlled scrimmage. I didn't get a chance to watch a lot of this. This was a spring game that was really mostly for the locals only. So a lot of good coverage provided by 24/7 Sports and the folks around the Clemson program. Shout out to Ross and even the sports information team being able to pass along some takeaways. I did not see a lot of production from what I think is one of the most intriguing pieces of this Clemson offense, which is that Adam Randall, who was a wide receiver to start his career, has moved to the running back position. You may remember that was something he did at the end of the last season, ACC championship game, college football playoff. Cade Klubnik didn't get a lot of work. Sounds like Adam Randall didn't get a lot of work either. That's what you would expect from some of your veterans. But when we try to imagine the Clemson offense, I'm thinking about not only that star-studded wide receiver group, but also are they going to be able to get some balance? Because the Clemson offense, when it's at its best, is able to run the football effectively. Can your wide receiver turn running back Adam Randall be able to be dynamic? Defensively, I didn't have a lot to be able to pull from this. Just curious if we'll have more spring games with more substance coming up this weekend. We'll get into that later this week. But any Clemson-related topics, as Dabo Swinney and the Tigers expected to be in the top 10 or around there heading into the season, wrap up their spring practice over the weekend.
I think if you move Adam Randall to running back and he's okay with it, and not transferring out, that suggests that they really value getting the ball in his hands. And it probably also is worth thinking maybe they really like their receiver room and they're seeing that continued growth out of some of those young dudes who they have on that team, as well as some of the veterans. You don't move a guy to running back if you think he's going to be more valuable at receiver. So they must feel really good about receiver, which makes some sense based on what we saw last year. And you also lose Phil Maffa, right? Mm-hmm. And Clemson has some decent backs in that room. blanking on the kid's name right now, but I really like the kid they signed out of high school last year. I think he's a guy who probably will play early for them. But I mean, Randall definitely has some juice to him when he has the ball in his hands, and if you don't have to scheme it up for him, you just hand it to him. Maybe that works.
You guys don't know this? I got inside intel on Clemson this year.
Oh,
I had a scout there that was in the stands watching, gave me not a text message, but like an audio message breakdown of the game. Be there all year long. I got inside. I got boots on the ground. I don't know if I should reveal my sources or not, but I'll have to give you guys a detailed breakdown.
Did Will transfer back? Not Will. No, Ben. Did Ben transfer back?
No.
Yeah.
So I played golf with somebody last week, and his son's on the team.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
So he was at the game. He was fired up, but he's very realistic too. Did I tell you guys who I played golf with last week?
VJ?
Did you tell our audience?
No, not that. No, so Josh Booty, former LSU quarterback, his son's a receiver on the Clemson roster. So he was there, and he left a long, detailed message how everybody looked. He had a couple good nuggets for me, but he's going to be in an interesting spot because his son's on Clemson. They play LSU week 1. It's going to be interesting. I'm sure he'll be rooting for his son in the Clemson Tigers, but it'll be good to have some inside sources there for Clemson all season long. Well, get him on the show sometime.
Can you share some of what were his strongest takeaways from being there?
He said they look good. He said they look good. He did. It's a very colorful message.
Okay.
I gotta filter it out before we bring it to air.
Yeah, the only thing Booty filters out is his last name. Wait, there's a much better version of that.
Well, no, yeah, this is like when Bud is reading The Dentist, and he has to his brain has to work really fast to edit it on the fly before he reads it Anchorman style, like whatever's written down right there. So and again, they didn't. This was not a Clemson year where they were throwing the spring game up on ESPN in the middle of the day. This was not a year. This was very much trying to get it out. But it is the most anticipation and most excitement for Clemson football heading into the fall that we've had in maybe about a half decade or so. So I think it'll be interesting to continue to track that. We'll check back in with them probably June, July once we really get ramped up with the preseason talk.
I'm surprised it wasn't on TV because, the last few weeks I've been told what such a healthy demand there is for spring football. Like, why wouldn't they televise it?
I don't know.
It's crazy. Just throwing millions down the drain.
Listen, we've tried to do our UFL picks and locks on here. It didn't work. Okay. we didn't quite have it down pat. But one thing we do have
is UFL back?
UFL, yes, of course. Yes.
I didn't know it started already.
Is it on CBS?
No.
They had Joe Tessitore on the opening weekend on a call at noon on ESPN. Yeah, I caught a couple minutes of the game.
Where was this being played?
Don't they still do the thing where they all play in Birmingham?
I'm just trying to figure out
how dialed in we are.
Did Tess want to call this, or was Tess needed to go to that city anyway? And they're like, all right, cool. Well,
text Kubelik, he'll know.
It was opening weekend. It was opening weekend.
I'm text Cole.
Yeah.
He's Cole, has the season started, and are they playing all the games in Birmingham?
Or the season started.
Yes. That's disrespectful. My man's working hard out there. That's the thing.
What were the terms of the bet Tessitore lost? They have to call you
dog. They are putting time in. They're trying to get they're trying to get their stats and facts and their notes together.
Maybe it's co-branded with SC Network. Is there some kind of collab?
They are not. I'm listen. Cole, shout out to you.
When did you get Tess on?
All right. Tess? Listen.
Does the UFL conflict with Joe's WWE schedule?
No.
Yeah, was WWE
okay with this? All right, so we cannot break down UFL games, but you know what we can do? We can break down some daggum quarterbacks, and that's exactly what we're going to do. So coming up on the other side, it was a mailbag question gone wrong. Now it's a whole episode. Ranking quarterbacks who started at least one game last year that are back for 2025 and more next.
The clock never stops. Relive the greatest moments with uninterrupted highlights and more.
It's Gareth Bale! Ronaldo! Wonderful goal!
On the UEFA Champions League channel. Streaming free.
Back here on the Cover 3 podcast. And Tom, I believe this was one that was like emailed in, right? The rank every quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So again, lots of different ways to get to us, but we liked this at least in terms of how it would really force us to expand our horizons right here. So our task was to rank quarterbacks who started a game last year and are back for 2025. It is not quite ranking starters. It is not quite ranking quarterbacks, but it is the beginning of both those, as we might be having the quarterback draft and some other rankings related activities coming up a little bit later in the year. So we have pre-made some top 10 graphics to unveil. Danny, do you want to get us started?
Let's do it. All right. So there was a little bit of in the chat, the group chat, there was a little bit of difference of opinion of what a starting quarterback could be. So that'll unfold. What's that?
I said we were throwing haymakers at each other.
Yeah, exactly. We were throwing haymakers. I also want to make it clear, and I think Tom sets this one apart. This is not a look at the NFL draft for 2026.
Correct.
This is college quarterbacks returning to form, expecting another big year from. I will kick it off. This was not influenced by anybody that was at the spring game this past weekend. But my number one quarterback, I was big on him going to the playoffs. He backed it up against Texas, having one of the better games of his season. Give me Cade Klubnik, one of the most experienced quarterbacks in the entire country. I think he's perfect for what Clemson wants to do. Once he got another year under his belt with Garrett Riley, started to settle in. I think he's going to put up really good numbers again. He's got to start faster than he did last year against an SEC defense. We saw him struggle against Georgia. He does play him at home there at LSU. We talked a little bit about that game. But I think he's going to have a phenomenal year for the Clemson Tigers. Just how far they can go, probably determined by how much of a step up he can take, how much they can run the ball around him. But I had him number one. Number two, I had Garrett Nussmeier out of LSU. Phenomenal. Just got to kind of rein him in just a little bit. He's got the big play capability. He's got all the physical tools, physical skills. Just gets a little bit loose with the football, as we saw a couple games last year that ended up costing him. Sawyer Robertson, who was the first one on Sawyer Robertson? Was it Tom or Bud? Bud's been on Sawyer Robertson.
Oh, no, is Tom going to claim it?
Don't make me pull out my QB power rankings from last season and give you the date. Come on now.
Yes. So Sawyer Robinson, incredible year he had last year for Baylor. I think he's going to be an absolute stud this season. Sam Leavitt, we got a glimpse of him. I would expect him to make big strides. Another quarterback, led his team to a Big 12 title. The Mateer pairing, this one's kind of a wild card. I wonder how he's going to make that jump into the SEC. Much stiffer competition, but I think his skill set translates. Love the fact that he's come with his offensive coordinator. Haynes King, I thought, was one of the more underrated quarterbacks this season. Got to stay healthy. He takes a pounding when he plays, but when he does, I think he really elevates Georgia Tech to another level. Carson Beck, even with the multiple games with 3 interceptions, still put up monster numbers. Playing a weaker ACC could help him going against some of those defenses, but I still want to see what he does if he can return to the form of 2 years ago when he had Brock Bowers, Ladd McConkey. I think that hurt him this past season. I had him up there. Drew Aller, I wanted to put higher, but he's the one who needs to take that step forward so that he can play his way into this list. And then finishing it out with 2 SEC quarterbacks in Lenore Sellers and DJ Lagway. I had Sellers slightly ahead just because of the dynamic playmaking ability. And then DJ Lagway, I felt like he made this list because of what he did those last 4 games. Statistically wasn't that big, but I think the sky could be the limit for him if he could, another year in Napier's system, more comfort. There's no question he's not rotating in and out of games. I think he could have a monster year for the Gators. And maybe the record doesn't unfold, as good or about, as it did at the end of the season. But I expect DJ Lagway to have a much better season and a big step forward for the Gators.
And there is some just who you got to this, right? Like, who do you want, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. We're not taking an NFL draft evaluation. No. We're just saying in the college football world, like how successful do you think you're going to be?
There's also an element of like, there are certain guys who, if you're running a very specific system, I think you want. Like Pavia is one of the most valuable players in the sport relative to like how much value he provides to his team. But
I got him at 19 and I don't feel great about it. I feel like he should be higher, but I slotted him at 19.
Exactly. So it's like if you're doing like value to their team, Pavia is like way up there, you know, but if you put him on other offenses, probably not.
Interesting. All right. So how do you guys want to do this? I kind of think we should just all show our cards, then dig into it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it works out.
Okay. All right, Bud, why don't you go next?
All right, let's throw mine up there. So I really only had one guy different than Danny. Our order is just different. So I had Lagway 1. Obviously, he's got to be healthy. Otherwise, I'm going to look really, really dumb for this. But I do think if he's healthy, he's the best player in college football. So I'm pretty sold on what he can be if healthy. But the shoulder thing or whatever he's got going on, that does scare me a lot, actually. And you know, like he had some stuff going on last year too. He's got to be right. But to me, it's a bit of like a Jacob deGrom type situation. If he stays healthy, I think he's the clear number one. Like if you give me 12 games of Lagway, I'd be shocked if there's anybody better than him. But again, I don't know if I'm going to get 12 games, so I might look really dumb for this. Nussmeier 2, right where Danny had him. I had Drew a little bit higher. That's probably some projection of improvement. We're pretty close on Sawyer. You know, Kate Klubnik, I know we just talked about a lot. I think I'm a bit of a Sellers doubter relative to like, you know, my buddy Brad Crawford who loves Sellers. Watching Sellers in that bowl game against Illinois where like Illinois ran the same coverage over and over again. He was just really confused and Illinois kind of trapped him into taking this kind of little crappy check down, right? And like they just tackled it for like a two-yard gain. That's a win for the defense over and over and over again. That was concerning, but like there's nothing that says you can't get better at reading defenses. And also I think South Carolina doesn't have a lot to throw to necessarily. I think Damon Williams is a dude. Okay. Think about it. Like Washington had a guy last year playing quarterback who was like 25 years old, and they were still really needing to work Damon Williams in because they thought he was that good. He took over the bowl game and looked awesome. He was like, what, like 300, 200 in the bowl game or something insane like that? Or
yeah, and for those listening at home, Damon Williams is the Washington quarterback.
Yeah.
And and to your point, he got the nod late in the season, got the start for the bowl game. So as a starter last season, qualifies here for our rankings.
Which was a large part of our group chat argument this morning. Like, should a guy that starts the bowl game count? But according to the verbiage that Chip used, it was like has to start a game.
Right.
Mr. Lawyer over here. Your Honor, I point to the verbiage in the rundown from Chip Patterson.
Sam Levitt in here as well. Haynes King and then John Mateer, who I think is more of a runner than people realize, but I think will work pretty well in Oklahoma's system that they're running, given that they also took his offensive coordinator, Ben Arbuckle. The one guy I was like, I got to find a place for him. There are really two. Beck and Altmaier.
Mm-hmm.
Like we've seen pretty good stuff from Carson Beck before. I could look dumb for not having him on my list, but he wasn't very good last year. Then he got hurt, so I guess we'll see. You know that. Arch should probably be on this list too, but like the production wasn't quite maybe what Son had. So we'll see what Tom has or what Chip has.
Tommy, take us through your top 10.
Mikey, if you want to get it up there. I know at number one, my number one will surprise people based on what I've said on this show. But when I went into these rankings, what I was going on was based pretty much like, I think that as we've watched college football in recent years, it's a lot like college basketball at the quarterback position where you want experience. And the more experience your quarterback has, typically the better off you are. So Cade has plenty of experience. He played well last year. I don't love his long-term potential in the NFL, but as Danny said, we are ranking college football quarterbacks here. And I think Cade has a good argument to be the number one QB coming back. So I've got him at 1, Drew Aller at 2, all the tools, everything. Just he struggles in big games. That's really the one thing that's holding him back at this point. Arch Manning, I just like his potential. I think that he has a chance to be the best quarterback in college this year if he lives up to it in that offense with that coach, with those players around him. He's got a chance to have a monster season. Danny touched on it a bit with Beck. Maybe moving to the ACC will help him where he's not facing SEC defenses every single week, although he never had to face Georgia's. But still, as long as he's, it's a little bit easier of a schedule, see if he can bounce back. Nuss, I will never not love the cannon. Just that's a trait that not many guys have. And it's one of those things where what if it clicks, and we've seen this with Josh Allen, and I know he's the exception, but when you have an arm like that and it does click, boom, like you are going to be a great player. Sawyer Robertson, who, just for the record, first appeared in my Tom Fornelli's quarterback power rankings on October 23rd, 2024, in which I wrote at that time, Baylor's not having a good season, but there is some reason for optimism in the future, and his name is Sawyer Robertson. The Bears scored a surprising 59-35 win over Texas Tech over the weekend, with Robertson throwing for 5 touchdowns. He didn't begin the season as Baylor's starter, but since taking over the role, he's amassed 1,408 total yards and 16 touchdowns in 5 games. If he keeps playing like this, considering the rest of Baylor's schedule, it's not too crazy to think the Bears could salvage the season with bowl eligibility. And guess what?
They
won every game
from
that point on. So, boom, I'm taking that one. Finally, I've got Altmaier at 7. That's not homerism. That's just knowing ball. Like, come on. If you watched him last year, you know.
He's good.
Lenora Sellers at 8. Devin Dampier, who I love, watched him at New Mexico, winning so much money betting New Mexico overs last year because of Devin Dampier and that wonderful Lobos defense. And then Lagway, who I agree with Bud. If he hits who he is, wow. But I need to see him do it and stay healthy before I can put him any higher than 10.
Yeah, Devin Dampier, Utah's quarterback now, as Utah is just thrilled to have a starter with a pulse that is currently alive. You know, just something that is really good. Utah's been through a lot, you know, having a deceased quarterback. So glad that Devin Dampier is going to be able to bring some life to the position. All right, let's throw up my top 10. I'm already starting to sense where I'm way too high, where I'm way too low. We've got some consensus here, at least in terms of a lot of respect for Cade Klubnik, the Clemson quarterback. I've also got Drew Aller at 2. Lenora Sellers up at 3. I was going through and I was looking at the way he played. Bowl game criticisms are 100% fair, but the way that he played against some of the best competition that he had, I was looking at Sellers and Nussmeier. Lenore Sellers had a better touchdown to interception ratio against ranked opponents than Garrett Nussmeier did. We talk about the decision-making and how Nuss just kind of, for all that arm talent, just won't always be able to put it in the right spot. DJ Lagway rounds out my top 5. I do have Arch Manning at 6. I'm not going to give up on Nico. I included him here in my top 10. I think that it was interesting at the end of last season to go through and really start looking at some of those throws, some of those misses. And when we start assigning blame, there was definitely something to be said that Nico didn't all of a sudden get worse. Nico all of a sudden maybe didn't have the best supporting cast. Now, you would hope an elite quarterback can level up everyone around him. I think he's going to be able to do that here with another year under his belt. Luke Altmaier here. I knew I had to have him in the top 10. It was just a matter of exactly where to place him. Sam Levitt. His started the season as kind of the playmaker, you know, the gutsy guy, finished the season as a much better thrower, in my opinion, and was able to do it even losing those wide receivers to injury. Then I'm also not going to give up quite on Carson Beck. I've got him rounding out my top 10. All right, couple names that I noticed that I want to get into, a couple names that were on some lists, not on others. We'll get into all that and more next.
I feel home when I see the faces that remember my own. When I'm with my friends, I feel home.
Monday's practice round suspended. What timing? That just came out now.
Well, really? Is there weather?
Yeah.
Yep. Due to inclement weather, they had to evacuate the grounds at 11:25 a.m. Further updates will be provided and shared on masters.com once available.
Listen, there are hotel bars in Aiken, South Carolina that are ready for you. You know, you can just come on back and somebody will be ready to take care of you. All right, bud, we just got a look at all 4 top 10s right there. What were some names either on your list, not on others, or on others, not on yours? What were some of the names that stood out that you think were some of the most interesting in terms of maybe a differing of opinion?
Yeah, I think like we all had Klubnik, top 5, but you know, some had him number 1, which is like, I can't say it's a bad pick, right? I didn't have number 1 on mine, but like I think that is an interesting one because he is so veteran, and you'd be really surprised if he had a bad year. I like the Sawyer love. To me, Altmaier and Beck were the two that I really had trouble leaving off. The dude at Arkansas, obviously, I probably should have had
Taylon Green.
Mm-hmm.
I think Taylon's pretty good when healthy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
But how am I separating that from, Petrino scheming it up for him? But then again, he is playing pretty difficult, competition on a week-to-week basis, and he has some ability. I don't think he's top 10, but he at least would have been on my kind of 11 to 20 list, I think.
I had Taylon Green down in the Brendan Sorsby range, down in the high 20s. Marcel Reed, Brendan Sorsby, that. I had those guys at the high 20s. Getting close to top 30 kind of range.
I don't have Marcel Reed anywhere close to my list. I'm just looking at the chat here.
I've got Marcel Reed 29.
Yeah,
right now.
And that's my bias, but I do know some coaches who coached against him, and they were just straight up he doesn't get it. So I'll wait to see if he can get it this year.
My guys that I had difficulty leaving off were Sam Levitt was one who was just kind of hovering there that I was like, I gotta put him on, but I couldn't find a spot. Rocco Becht, I really like, but I didn't want to put him in the 10. And everybody's wondering why Chip had Nico on his top 10 and I didn't. It's Nico did not have a good year, man.
No.
Just plain old. He's got the ability to do it, but until he shows it, I'm not putting him on there. I hyped him too much last year. I want to take a step backward a little bit this season.
I'm buying during the dip. Let's go. Let's keep it. Bottom four, Nico.
I had a few Big 12 quarterbacks that I had just off. Rocco Becht was one of them. Loved him. He was just outside. Josh Hoover, TCU, put up monster numbers last year. I think he could have another really good season. Avery Johnson was another one. If he just gets a little bit more consistency, he was outside, but that was more, I felt like I had to project a little bit more. And I was trying to go with who do I feel like is the safest to, if they just keep playing the way they are, they would be on a top 10 list. That's where I went with. Chandler Morris was another one where he had put up great numbers at North Texas, but going to UVA, that could be a rough spot for him where I don't know if he's elevating, UVA to a 7 or 8 win team in the ACC. I think it's just going to be, it's going to be a lot harder for him to put up the type of numbers he did last year at North Texas.
I'd take CJ Bailey over Chandler Morris. I'd take Miller Moss over Chandler Morris.
Mm-hmm.
I'd take Baron Morton, Fernando Mendoza, Jake Retzlaff. It gets a little bit, I think we were, by the way, I will say, Mateer, my hesitation, I've got Mateer at 11, Haynes King at 12, Sawyer Robertson at 14. These are names that were on a lot of y'all's lists. I was very much right there. Rocco Becht at 15, Josh Hoover at 16, Minnie Mahomes at 17, Dylan Raiola is where I ended up putting the Nebraska quarterback, Billy Edwards at 18. I know those are some of the ones that were mentioned in there. For Mateer, I had so much fun watching him within Washington State's offense, but I wonder how much of that fun playmaking is, even when you move with the offensive coordinator. Washington State's strength of schedule that made it so he had an athletic advantage that he's just not going to have at Oklahoma. And do you think I am overrating that here? And again, I've got him 11, so it's not like I am thinking that he's going to be totally worthless. It was just the last sort of tiebreakers that I had when I was trying to draw my line around that 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 mark.
I think it's real. I mean, how many guys did he play against who are going to play in the NFL? It's the Mountain West defensively, talent-wise, it ain't much. I know they weren't a Mountain West team, but it was a very Mountain West schedule. And if you look at what Mateer did against the teams that are like just the FBS teams, right? Texas Tech, 47% completions, 115 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. That's terrible, right? Now, they won the game 37-16. So, and he did run the ball pretty well. But throwing-wise, it was questionable. Washington, decent defense, not great. 50%, 245, 1-1.
But he was scooting. He was doing a lot of this.
There was a 3-game stretch there with Utah State, New Mexico, and then a very banged up, if you guys recall, Oregon State team back to back to back, where like he lit him up and had a QB rating of like 190 plus. And then he also killed Hawaii and then San Diego State. So like the back half of that was like, hey, we're going to play all of the worst Mountain West defenses in a row, pretty much. And then Oregon State, which was, pretty sketch. Just, yeah, like I think he's got talent. I do, but I don't think he's Cam Ward. And I know he put up similar numbers to Cam Ward, but I think that's the difference. Like the competition adjustment is pretty meaningful to me.
Size and build as well.
And isn't that the story on like, because Mateer comes out of Texas, right? Like as a high school prospect, late bloomer, under recruited. Yeah. And so the what's his name? Is it Eric Morris? Like Eric Morris, who's now the head coach at North Texas, when he was at Washington State, sort of like got the word out or was able to pick up on John Mateer just because it was a little bit late in the cycle. You get him there. Yeah, just because you're getting Washington State's quarterback again does not necessarily mean you're going to be getting the number 1 pick in the draft. Like that is definitely something to look at. What about the former Oklahoma quarterback who's now at Auburn? Did Jackson Arnold come anywhere close to consideration?
No. Not for my top 10, no. He was a name that started on the giant list of quarterbacks, but he was never in the name of guys I was considering in the top 10.
He wasn't even top 20 for me, I don't think.
Yeah.
Now, he could be by the end of the season. But
I got him at 31. Congratulations. You beat out Eli Holstein. So you are you are at 31. You are ahead of like Aiden Childs. I have no idea what to do with. Could not place Aiden Childs because of the highs of the highs and the lows of the lows. Caden Salter, no idea what to do with Caden Salter. Didn't have him inside my top 25, but very much realized that if everything goes well and he's a 1,000-yard rusher with a 65% completion percentage, then we're going to be talking about him as a much better quarterback. But there were a couple there where I'm finding it easier to even buy in on the blind potential of extrapolating the highlights of Arch Manning. I will buy into that, but then there's just too much caution for me to jump in on like a Jackson Arnold, a Caden Salter, Aiden Childs, some of those guys.
I think that's fair.
Darian Mensah?
Caden Salter.
Mensah I didn't really consider for top 10.
I had not top 10. I'm just saying like guys that were kind of next level that had really solid years. It's hard to project what he does at Tulane versus at Duke, but they did have a quarterback who put up really good numbers last year, and they said, we think we're getting a significant upgrade, and they apparently paid a lot of money for him.
I've got Mensah at 26. Yeah. That's again, like, would rather have Fernando Mendoza, would rather have Jake Retzlaff, Diego Pavia, Billy Edwards, Dylan Raiola, some other players that I think I would take ahead of Mensah.
Am I just missing it with Retzlaff? I didn't have him like top 30.
No, I think Jake Retzlaff is fun.
Yeah.
I don't know if I think Jake Retzlaff is good. And I mean that in the nicest way.
Yeah. Okay.
I've seen Mendoza mentioned a lot in the chat. I feel like if this was a draft ranking, I might have had Mendoza in my top 10.
Oh, because of tools as opposed to...
Yeah, I mean, he was a freshman last year. He's 6'5", 220 pounds, good arm, just the build and all that stuff. I think he has the potential over the next couple of years to play his way into like a first-round talent, but production-wise, not quite there yet. Although he did go 90 whatever yards with the boys.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I mean, the guts that we've got, just going 90 yards with the boys. This is somebody who stands up in rivalry games, and he ain't going to lose. Rocco Becht firmly in my top 15, but I didn't get him in my top 10. What's if you were to do the scout move, pros, cons, what goes in each box for Rocco Becht?
Size is a con. Eagerness can be a con at times.
I think it's like top tier arm strength isn't quite there. Like he doesn't have the cannon. I like to see him get a little bit more accurate. I think, when things break down a little bit, not quite as accurate under pressure, which is normal. But I love the intangibles. I think he's like a perfect fit for that program, for what Matt Campbell wants out of his QB. I love him from that perspective.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, I unlike you, Chip, I didn't rank anybody outside my 10. They're all just in a list of names, but I would say
that's kind of where I was. That's where I was kind of throwing some of these.
He's no lower than 12 on mine. I would say that.
Mm-hmm.
Did you guys have Gunnar Stockton anywhere near this list?
No.
So I was on the Ultimate Show on 24/7 on Wednesday, and we had to rank like the top SEC quarterbacks. And Smoke and I didn't have Stockton in our top 5. And then Emily was like, is he top half in the SEC? And then I was at Elite 11 over the weekend. We were debating it. It was like, could be, but like it's because we were discussing like what is Georgia going to do at quarterback out of the high school level? Like at some point, are they going to go after an elite kid and actually pay for him? You know, and then one of the guys I was talking to was like, well, they got Gunnar for the next 2 years. I was like, are they cool with like Gunnar? And they're like, well, he's Bobo's boy. So it's gonna be that way.
Yes. You know what?
Gosh.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm like,
that's the word getting out. That is not good for him because the first bad game he has.
Are we sure? Like, but maybe we're wrong. Like maybe Stockton is really good and should merit more consideration for this list. I don't think so, but I'm open to it. Like we don't know everything.
I mean, when none of us thought Stetson Bennett was ever like a world beater,
right?
You know, like I think he's probably more gifted or about the same.
When you're on that show with Smoke, they should call it the Smoke and Bud Show.
Emily did make that joke. It was right. Moss, no.
Hold on. I am mad at myself for not putting good vibes Gunnar Stockton. You know,
I didn't qualify him. Like I didn't have Arch Manning. That's why other people. Why didn't you have Arch Manning? I didn't really qualify him as a returning starter, even though he did start multiple games. I would put Gunnar Stockton in that category. Ty Simpson. Like there were a lot of first-year starters that have played a little bit due to injury or whatever, and I just didn't consider them as returning starters.
I think that's why I had Damon Williams in and not Arch, because like Damon was playing almost every game. He like threw and rushed for 1,000 basically. Like it's pretty close, to each. So yeah.
I think that Gunnar Stockton in an SEC that we are expecting to have good quarterback play across the board. I think Gunnar Stockton cracking the top half of a SEC quarterback rankings will be difficult, but I wish that I'd included him inside my top 30 somewhere. He probably deserves a spot as a top 30 returning starting quarterback if he qualifies for that, because like we said, he came in there and he showed enough that you're at least going into 2025. If Gunnar Stockton is the quarterback of the Georgia Bulldogs, I am still picking Georgia to make the college football playoff.
Yes, I agree.
Okay.
But mainly because Georgia should be so much better at receiver this year.
That's fine.
Like they had to play these guys last year who were just not designed to play in the roles that they had to play because their top 2 outside guys got popped for domestic violence, right? I know the one got cleared. I'm not saying convicted, but and he's back on the team, whatnot. But I think they're going to be a lot better this year. Like Branch and Thomas, who took in the portal. Colby Young is back. You don't have to play like Dylan Bell and pretend he's like a real receiver. He can play some running back for you actually. You don't have Arian Smith anymore, but you have a guy in Branch who's probably a good approximation of that, but can actually run some routes, which could be helpful. And then some of the young guys they signed as well might actually be ready to contribute. So I think Stockton will put up way better numbers than Carson Beck did this last year, but I'm not sure he's like much better than Carson Beck actually is.
We mentioned the name earlier. Want to circle back to it because I think it's the one that I think might have the most upward mobility, and that is Kansas State quarterback Avery Johnson, a name that I was not even considering for top 10, but 1 year ago in July, I was like, I don't know, maybe an Avery Johnson Heisman flyer might be worth a sniff, or something along those lines. Your Kansas State Big 12 title odds, what's the path forward for Johnson?
Development as a thrower.
Yeah.
Like we all know he can run like hell. Like he can run like the wind, and if he gets in the open field, he can make big plays, which at the college level, that could make you a very good quarterback, the ability to do that consistently and keep drives alive. But teams do not respect him as a passer. And it becomes much easier to defend that guy when you don't have to worry about him beating you with your arm. So he needs to take that step forward, I would think.
Agree?
I would agree. I mean, I think it's you got to become better as a passer. So team, like Tom nailed it. I don't even love what he said.
What about the other guy in Kansas?
Jalen Daniels?
Yeah. Did you guys give him any consideration?
Yeah.
Actually,
he just kept getting bumped down.
Mm-hmm.
I just, like I had him in the big old pot of quarterbacks, and I kept picking someone else. I want Jalen Daniels to be higher and to be better, but I just found myself bumping him down and losing the tie breaks. What about you?
Same.
Chat says Avery's not even a top 5 quarterback in the Big 12.
If Baron Morton's ahead of him, yeah, or no?
Sawyer.
I'm not taking Barry Morton over him. I think that's all system. I don't think Morton's anything special.
Okay, Josh Hoover. Are you taking Josh Hoover over him?
I'm gonna do this. Let's see. I would take right now. I would take Levitt. I would take Becht. I would take Sawyer.
I would take Hoover.
I would take Dampier.
I would take Dampier.
Would you take Daniels?
See, Daniels' health is what.
Yeah, I mean we're talking about a back.
I mean, and him and Avery are very similar. Yeah, but like Daniels and Avery, when you think about it, are almost the same QB at this point. Like different body types, but skill set, they're pretty much the same. You don't really trust either of them to be a drop back passer.
Right.
So I think that's kind of a wash, but I would say Avery has been banged up, but he's been healthier. And it's like he doesn't have back issues, which is what Jalen Daniels has had. And that's always terrifying to me. I think there's an argument that he's not top 5. I don't know if I agree with it, but I think you can make a solid argument.
Can you make it? Go ahead.
Just Levitt and Sawyer for me.
Okay, so you've still got like Avery Johnson at his best, at his healthiest. You're still in.
Yeah, I know there are some teams that were willing to pay a lot for him based on what they saw last year, and Kansas State ponied up. So, yeah, I'm like my belief in the market, which obviously like that can be wrong too. But like, do I say it with conviction that he's clearly better than those other guys? Not really. I just think it's like personal preference, tiebreaker type stuff. Like the two, I think based on what we've seen, I would definitely like no doubt take over him are Levitt and Sawyer.
I would add Rocco and Hoover on my personal list, but I'm not gonna jump out here and throw Brendan Sorsby. Brendan Sorsby over.
Let's see Rocco without these weapons.
That's true.
True, good point.
Those dudes are getting a lot of hype for the draft.
Yeah, the Bud Elliott, the Bud Elliott equation of how many players did you have selected to the NFL Draft Combine versus how many players do you normally have, and is that delta such that we should aggressively change our expectations for you to meet last season's success? It's a very informative exercise. I believe Iowa State put a pretty healthy number of players in the combine, right?
They did. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Nolan,
there are a couple guys out there. I was like, you sure you don't want to transfer? He's on that list for me.
Yeah.
Based on who they lost.
Let's see. I'm trying to look down my full list. Did any? I know we talked about mostly power conference quarterbacks. Did any G5 quarterbacks at least get your attention that that are going to be back for 2025?
No.
Pine just committed to Bowling Green.
Well, the Connor Bazelak path says that he's going to be lights out with Eddie George, right?
What about Drew Pine going to Bowling Green? We think,
I was looking at Parker Navarro, our boy from Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
He's not going to make any of the top 10 list here, but it was at least one that was worth a shout as I was trying to gather all of the quarterbacks. I had forgotten until my prep. Brendan Lewis is at Memphis now, the former Nevada quarterback.
Yeah.
He takes over as the signal caller for a Memphis offense that was very, very good to Seth Hennigan over the years. Caden Veltkamp transfers from Western Kentucky to FAU. That was another one that I'd forgotten about, that very productive with the Hilltoppers. Gio Lopez stays at South Alabama, right? Does that sound right? I was like, Gio Lopez, did he transfer? No. Alonzo Barnett at JMU, did he transfer? No. Seems like Sunbelt was able to hold on to a couple of decent starters that they had at the quarterback position last year. Oh, Haj Malik for Dan Mullen, right? Yeah.
Are you buying low on Byron Brown?
Oh,
that could be. What about Gronowski at Iowa? Like,
yep.
I just haven't seen him play.
He's not top 10, but where do we start him?
I mean,
you start him.
I don't know. It's like I haven't really seen him play, so I can't really give you a great read other than just looking at his numbers at the FCS level, which I think are somewhat informative sometimes, but I've seen plenty of guys come from the FCS level with great numbers and look like ass once they get to a power conference. So I don't know.
Where does he fall on the Marcel Reed scale? If every quarterback can be sorted as
Brosmer?
Above Marcel Reed or below Marcel Reed.
Can he be a Max Brosmer? Because if you look at Brosmer's numbers at Delaware before he came to Minnesota, they were insane.
Mm-hmm.
And then at Minnesota, he was just like competent. He wasn't great, but he was a competent quarterback who made some good throws for him. Can Gronowski be that kind of guy for Iowa? Because that would be an upgrade for them in the passing game.
I thought that Brosmer, as is the case sometimes, got better as the season went on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it felt like he was finally getting comfortable. The offense was getting a little bit better coming down the stretch. No Kyron Drones mentions.
No, and he's on apparently Drones is on a pitch count or like some kind of like.
Yeah, they shut him down for spring.
Yeah, I am all kinds of red flags.
Red flagging. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I know we're just coming off spring training, but there's some. What are we doing? Okay.
Wait, hold on. Is this
we don't want our quarterback throwing the football. Like, wait, what?
Mm-hmm.
That can't be good.
Do you think that's imposed by the Kyron Drones camp, or is this new offensive coordinator Philip Montgomery and Brent Pry making that decision?
He had a minor medical procedure. We made the decision to hold him out for the remainder of spring practice. He's demonstrated excellent leadership. We fully anticipate he'll be ready to return for summer workouts.
Yikes.
Cool.
We anticipate. We're not saying he will be. We anticipate.
That's I mean, look, that's a guy who needs reps and to throw the ball and get
with a new offense.
Yeah.
Let's sell some. It's day to move stocks. Let me just move some Virginia Tech stock right now. Okay.
I was looking at the same thing. Yeah. Like
we see some comments in the tailgate. Other G5, yes. Owen McCown at UTSA, Tucker Gleason at Toledo. Those are other players that are back and did not transfer back with their same programs.
Let me throw you a scenario here. Okay. Let's say Dante Moore wins the Oregon job, which I think is pretty reasonable. And we know that staff actually has behind the scenes hyped up Novosad some and is treating it as a competition. And so that they're running the Will Stein offense. Obviously, UTSA is still running something pretty similar that Will Stein, the offensive coordinator, came from UTSA to Oregon. Novosad is from Texas, right? Let's say he loses that job to Dante Moore. So he's never going to get a chance to play over Moore. Does he go jump and just do like a bridge year at UTSA? Because like McCown's fine, but like I think it's more those receivers that we like a lot at UTSA, and then maybe he shows off at UTSA and then jumps, to a major P5 in 26. Because I'm like, where would you go if you're Novosad? I'm kind of working on something now where like the losers of some of these jobs who I think are basically blocked out due to timing and eligibility of ever actually playing at their current school. Like he's one that'd be interested. Like where would he go if Austin Mack loses the Bama job? Like, where does he go? There's some interesting kind of dominoes that could fall that could affect the G5.
I think he should stay at Oregon so some people would tweet about how they love to see guys sticking with their team because it just
the Notre Dame loser, right? Another one.
The Notre Dame loser. That's a horrible thing to call Michael. He's not even here today, bud. Come on.
So what if Novosad leaves though? Now you've got depth concerns at quarterback if Oregon's trying to win a national championship.
For sure.
Right? I don't.
Yeah. If you truth steer them to Oregon, do you think that they believe that this is the team that can win a natty?
No, I think last year was the team. Yeah.
They lose a ton off last year's team. And now, like, anyway, Andrew Ivins has brought this up a lot on the 105 show. Like, we're going to find out how good these guys are that Oregon recruited because they have not played a lot of their guys so far who they signed out of high school.
Ooh, a lot of the defensive line had transfers. Secondary had
transfer heavy.
Yeah.
How good are these guys? We're gonna find out.
Yeah, I think if you're Oregon going into this year, you're still thinking you can have a shot to win the Big Ten, obviously, because there is no clear-cut favorite, although, I mean, Ohio State's the favorite. But I think your ultimate goal is get to the playoff. I don't really think a national title for this team is realistic.
I mean, it could happen if it all hits right. Like if Moore is an absolute superstar and is somehow like better than Gabriel, sure, that Oregon could win a natty, but that's a pretty big leap.
It's a very Penn State ass season for Oregon. As you're looking at it.
Why do you say that like it's an insult?
It's not, but it's just like that for so many years. And like this is a year where we say the opposite.
I would love to just have a Penn State ass season every year.
I know.
Seriously.
First world problems in college football. But like that is this year is the opposite, where for Penn State, we're like, okay, now like it's go time. But so many seasons we go into it was like, yeah, I mean, Penn State, like, they're not going to be running ahead of Ohio State or, in previous years, not going to be running ahead of Ohio State and Michigan. But, yeah, they'll be right there. And for Oregon, it sounds like that's the same sort of expectations where the distance between the floor and the ceiling is so small because everyone expects a high floor, but no one really expects the same ceiling. So it's something to watch for, especially with the quarterback dominoes.
Great.
All right, let's see. No, we already got Kyron Drone. Can't think of any other quarterbacks that we haven't gotten a chance to break down here.
Quick shout outs. I don't really want to have discussions about it, but Dylan Raiola, Diego Pavia, and somebody who I think kind of flew under the radar last year and had an excellent season and really surpassed my expectations for them, Ethan Kaliakmanis at Rutgers. I thought was phenomenal for them last season.
Great call. Great shot right there.
He was much better reuniting with Soraka.
Mm-hmm.
100%. All right. We will be last any national championship picks? Basketball?
Dude, that game on Saturday was wild.
I don't even want to watch tonight.
What time does it start?
It starts like 9 Eastern, man. I know. I love the network that it's on, and every decision that they make is great. But
this happens every year. Did you know this 8:50 start time is the earliest start time since 1982?
Yeah,
I know.
It's
the same time every year, and
it's dumb every year. Chip,
everyone
I'm speaking truth to power.
Everybody wakes up on Monday like, why did they do this? How long has this happened? Surely it's never been this late before. No, it's always this late, okay? You've got a very small window to operate between when the West Coast gets off work and when the East Coast goes to bed, and you got to fit it in somewhere between. So they try their best, okay?
Yeah, that's what it is. They're worried about people hitting their bedtimes. It's not when the advertising revenue is the highest.
Those two things are the same. When the chart goes down, what is the college football equivalent of the Duke Houston semifinal?
Does it have to be like a playoff game, or could it just be any kind of comeback?
I will tell you, no boy, 2013 in the moment in the game, kind of felt like one of those. Just come back and steal it. Maybe 05 Texas, it felt like USC was in control till Texas just like jumped back in and stole it. Because that's what it was. Duke was in control, and then Houston just jumped in there and stole it.
They just like couldn't convert from third down. That's the one I was going with. Like when
13?
When Lendell White gets stuffed.
05.
They play Reggie, and then was it Reggie or Lendell who tries the crazy lateral for like
Reggie?
No real reason. It was Reggie did the lateral, didn't work, and then it was like if you played that game again, I think you're taking USC because like they're probably not going to just be like that bad on third down. Just
in the most crucial moments when you absolutely could have won this game with the first down.
But that's why we love sports, because like you do get outcomes.
The 13 FSU team was so dominant in the regular season that sometimes I think I forget even how much Auburn was controlling that game until things started to slide after halftime.
Oh, totally. When Benjamin walks by the assistant receivers coach, he's like, "Hey, they're calling out our plays," and like ESPN catches on the broadcast. I remember when I was doing Tomahawk, we ran an article on this. It was like I think FSU went to like 11.2 yards per play after that moment. Like they put the towels up on the next drive. It's like, okay, they're going to score a touchdown at every single ready drive. This is, right. And then they got the kickoff return.
Right. It's the kickoff return from Bobo Wilson and like driving it at the very end, just chucking it up there where only Kelvin can get it.
If you recall, Jalen Ramsey, who's probably a Hall of Famer in the NFL, he didn't start at corner on that team because they had Ronald Darby and PJ Williams, who had like safety 10-year NFL careers.
Was he a nickel?
Ramsey was having to play safety. So when Trey Mason runs Ramsey's ass over, he actually scores probably too soon, and he hits the Heisman pose, and he leaves like plenty of time to go down and score.
Fun game. Yeah, not so fun for the Duke Blue Devils, who will be spending Monday night at home. But we will be back on Wednesday, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, with a look ahead to a busy weekend of spring football action. We'll try to let you understand which ones are actually going to be spring games, which ones are going to be drills, what we can learn, what we're not expecting to learn, just basically getting you set for the one really big weekend of spring football action. We'll do that on Wednesday. Come hang out, youtube.com/cover3. And you can follow him on Twitter at Tom Fornelli. You can follow him at Bud Elliott 3. You follow me at Chip_Patterson. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
The San Francisco Giants are the best team in baseball.
See ya.